Today, Brodie and I wanted to talk about something I've been seeing too much in the sport of Ultimate, okay? Ultimate players are constantly cranking out into hip external rotation, and we're not paying attention to the internal rotation component, okay? Now what this does is it leads to hip asymmetries, and what does that lead to? That leads to injury, okay? So what do I mean? A lot of players will see, good players that can break the mark just fine, but they're stepping out like this, and then they're cranking into hip external rotation in order to throw, okay? And they're doing this repetitively here, here, here. Same thing with this pivot. They'll be getting into this position and repetitively throwing like this, only on this side, okay? So think about how many times one player is getting into this specific position year after year after year. It's not healthy, okay? On top of that, it's not very effective to throw that way.
Yeah, so one thing I was just gonna say is when I pivot, I wanna be able to bounce off my pivot as fast as I can. So if I go to pivot out on a backhand here, if I don't throw this pass, I wanna be able to bounce back as quick as I can to throw a flick. Same with flick. If I bounce over for a flick, I wanna be able to bounce back. And if you twist, so when you're doing these, when you do these bends like this, okay, when you're bending this way and when you're bending like this, that way, it's really hard for you to push your weight off and go back over to the flick side. Same with the flick to the backhand. So one thing you want to make sure you're doing is that your toes are pointing at the spot of where you're pivoting. So if I go to pivot over on a backhand, I want to make sure my toe is pointing in that direction. Also, the reason I do this is if you point your toe out like this, okay, when I go to bend and extend for a low release break backhand, it's really hard for me to be balanced and lean way out here. Now if I have my toe pointing in the direction where I want to pivot, I can now bend, lean all the way out here and be balanced to throw that backhand. So that's another thing to take a look at.